Welcome, everybody. This is Starting Out Bright, and I am Noreen Savage. I'm so glad you're here, and you are in for a treat with tonight's guest. But just to get started, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and who I'm not. First of all, I am nobody official with Bright Line Eating, but the program has done a lot for me. And about 3 years ago, it's coming up in a couple weeks. My friend Lori posted on Facebook that she had lost 57 pounds in 1 year with a program called Bright Line Eating. And if anybody was interested, they could just message her and she would tell them the scoop. Well, my hot little fingers flew over to Messenger as fast as they could get there to find out what this was all about. And she proceeded to tell me that there was a book written by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson called Bright Line Eating. And in the book was described there are 4 bright lines that you don't cross. No sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, weighed in measured portions. And when Lori told me that, my heart sunk because I thought there's absolutely no way that I could do anything as drastic as that. But I really like my friend. We went out for lunch and she just proceeded to tell me a little bit more of what Bright Line Eating was all about. She suggested that I get the book, that I read the book, and that I get into the community. At that time, a group called We Eat Bright with Lines. They're still going strong with thousands of people. But at that time, I got in and I just sat. I watched all the then and now photos. I watched as people shared their stories, their struggles, and their successes. And for the first time in a long time, I was feeling hope rise within me because here I was, 270 pounds at 5'2". I could hardly walk. My knee was in excruciating pain, backache. I snored every night, waking up my husband, sleep apnea, the works. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year, I'd get choked up. I'm sorry. If I lasted 1 year doing Bright Line Eating, I would do what my friend Lori did. I would post on my private Facebook page and I would help anybody I could. Well, the year came up. That was in July 2020 because it took me a couple months to jump in. And I'm a Christian, and as I was getting ready to post, I felt God say to me, Noreen, you can do more than that. You could do Zooms. You could connect people. And that's what happened. I don't know how people started saying yes to me to do interviews because they didn't know me. But here they are, one after another. And I found out today was 80, there's now 82 interviews with Wendy. So all I can say is thank you so much for trusting me. And thank you from everyone who has had an opportunity to listen to your story, and Wendy tonight to your story. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. And Wendy, welcome, Wendy Reynolds. What a delight. We talked the other day and we got to know each other a little bit. I told my story, just a tiny snippet. And I wonder if you could just bring us up to speed what brought you into Bright Line Eating. And you can go as far back or as little as you want before you decided to take the plunge.
Okay. It's nice to see all the little faces and names popping up on my screen. I haven't ever done this before. I always just Zoom on my phone, so I can't see anybody. So it's been really fun to see friends and friends.
That's so great.
So, thanks, Noreen. I can't just start at Bright Line Eating. I got to back up, you guys. I'm one of those that, well, anyway, my name's Wendy. I'm turning 60. I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and we moved here between 5 and 6 years ago from Southern California. And that's where I grew up and was raised. And we raised our kids in Orange County, California. So I'm a California girl through and through, but we really, really, really love living out here in Huntsville. But I have to back up. I really can't remember not being a food addict. And I just need to add that part to my story. I always, even in elementary school and in kindergarten, I remember watching what people were eating and smelling the cookies being baked in the lunchroom. And I had a great mom who always packed my lunch, so I never got to buy any of that stuff in the lunchroom. But I remember my first time watching my kindergarten teacher put the graham crackers back in her drawer of her desk, and everybody went out to play, and I ran back in and lied about getting something, and I opened the drawer and started taking food at a very young age from her drawer. And I stole from my brothers and sisters at Easter time, at Halloween. I stole whenever I babysat at people's houses. I would just clear a little bit off of everybody's containers and bags and boxes when I babysat. And I remember in 6th grade, I worked really hard at being a teacher's pet so that I could stay in and grade papers, because that meant I could search through the cupboards and find what I needed. So there's a part of me that there were always two Wendy's, two of me. And one of them was the secret little binge eater, and the other one was the overachiever. I was a good kid, and I always kept the rules, and I got straight A's, and I was involved in cheerleading and student government and all of that. But I just felt split in two. And I understand these things now, but I didn't know when I was a kid. And it really hit me in 5th grade when my teacher in California, they have something called Junior Olympics, and they weigh you to decide if you're going to be in group A, B, or C. Well, I'm only 5'2", so I was always one of the shortest ones in my class, but they weighed me and put me in group C. And I remember in that moment thinking something's wrong with this picture. And I've always been a big journaler, and I had my first diary. It had leopard whatever on it with a key. And I wrote a promise to God that I would never eat sugar again. And that's when I was 10. And I think I lasted a week or two and couldn't hold on to it. And my journals through high school and junior high are just filled with diets and tries and promises to God and prayers and cries and tears. I was just obsessed with food and weight and numbers. And I would say in high school, I fluctuated up and down 10 or 20 pounds. I wasn't obese. I enjoyed high school, but my obsession really took hold when I went away to college. And I'd done a lot of therapy, thousands of dollars of therapy over the years, trying to find out why I'm a food addict. And I still don't know why. I had wonderful parents and a good upbringing, but something in me split, and I just had to have the food. And I remember I was a what do you call those, candy striper in high school. And I worked at the hospital, and I would wear this little red and white striped dress, and I'd go in the kitchen and fill my pockets with food out of the little volunteer kitchen and go outside behind the bushes and eat. And I don't know about all of you guys, but I only ate in private, and I was just a secret closet eater and never would eat in front of other people. So it was a tough gig for me in college, and I stole from my roommates. I became a janitor in college, and I worked from 3 to 7 a.m. cleaning professors' offices. And I would just go hunt in their cupboards and in their little personal fridges. And it's so weird to me now, because I'm just an honest, good little Christian girl. And I would never take your money, your purse, your car, but I would take your food if I needed it. And it still is embarrassing to me this day that I can be so dishonest when it comes to the food. I had this idea, this false belief that if I prayed hard enough and if I was good enough and worked hard at being good enough, that Heavenly Father would take this addiction away from me. And so in college, I went to church and I obeyed the commandments. I was just a little law-abiding citizen. And I guess I thought if I was good enough, he would sprinkle some good girl dust on me and I wouldn't be driven by this addiction anymore. But my faith and my prayers weren't enough. And now I understand that I had a brain problem, a living problem, a thinking problem, but I didn't know that then. I thought it was a spiritual problem. I thought I had some sort of disease that if I just prayed hard enough. Anyway, my husband and I were high school sweethearts, and we got married. And at the age of 23, I had 2 new babies. I was approaching 200 pounds at 5'2", and I was just desperate. I tried lots of things. We won't go into all that. I tried everything you guys all tried, you know, the pills, the potions, the books, the diets. I even wrote Oprah Winfrey a letter. I thought maybe she could help me. She didn't write me back though.
You tried.
I tried. I thought maybe Oprah could fix me. But at 23, I went to my first Overeaters Anonymous meeting, my first 12-step meeting. And I was at a hospital and there was a whole bunch of people at this meeting and they were talking about AA and 12 steps and alcoholism. And I didn't know what it was, but I drove myself. I've never tasted alcohol to this day, but I went to an AA meeting and asked if I could buy their big book because I didn't know where to get it.
Oh.
And I went home and read it in just a few days. And what I got from reading that book was I understood addiction. I could relate to the alcoholic, and I had a really quite a spiritual experience. I felt like, I don't know, I felt hope for the first time because I felt understood of what I was experiencing myself. So, fast forward 32 years, you guys, of 12-step meetings. I started OA meetings in Utah and in Texas and in California. Everywhere I went, I would start meetings. And then eventually the last 18 years before we moved here to Huntsville, I went to an offshoot of OA with a strict structured plan. And it's no flour, no sugar, 3 meals, nothing in between, weighed and measured quantities. So I was like not surprised when I heard about Bright Line Eating. And to summarize my 12 steps, I would say I learned 3 things. I learned that I needed God as my foundation. I understood I needed strict boundaries around my food in order to quiet my addiction. And I knew I needed a community of people. I couldn't fix myself and I couldn't do it on my own. And so I'm grateful for that foundation. But when we moved out here to Huntsville, I lost my tribe. I lost my people and I lost my meetings, and I tried to do it over the phone, and I went to a couple meetings and there was no recovery. I just couldn't find my footing anymore. And I was on Facebook. Now I'm at Bright Line Eating.
Yeah.
And this is 3 years ago. I was on Facebook, and one of my friends who's a recovering alcoholic and was also in my 12-step food addiction program out in California, she posted this little video of this cute little lady named Susan Pierce Thompson, and it was called Not an Option, if you can find it, and on her YouTube channel, but I didn't know what it was. And I clicked on it, and because her post said, how come I can do this with alcohol, but I can't do it with food? And I was intrigued. So
this is what your friend said?
That was her words. She's
okay.
Like, yeah, because she had 20 something years sober, but she couldn't translate that sobriety into food. So I watched it, and then I Googled, probably like some of you guys, I just Googled Susan Pierce Thompson, and then I saw this book, and I don't have it here. I have my Atomic Habits and my Resume. I don't have my Bright Line Eating one right here. Anyway, I wanted it quick, and I knew I couldn't find it in Alabama, so I got it on Audible, and I listened to it 3 times all the way through that summer 3 years ago. And then I approached my husband that fall, and I just felt like God brought me to something that made sense. And I'll tell you guys, the science, the brain science of food addiction and quieting the brain and automaticity and the willpower gap and all of that was something I had never heard and learned before. And so I approached my husband and said, I think I'm being led to do this. Can I have $500 for boot camp? So I signed up for boot camp in November 2019 and never had heard of anyone doing Bright Line Eating. I didn't know about any Facebook groups or anything like that. And I struggled. I did boot camp for 10 weeks and ate through boot camp. I wasn't one of those that said, I lost 16 pounds. I lost 22 pounds. I just watched all those modules, and I tried so hard to do it right, to do it perfectly, and I couldn't get it. And then in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, I started to hunt on Facebook for people and found a few people and found a group, a church group. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I found that they had a Facebook group that I could be a part of. And I put myself out there and said, I need a mastermind group. And my mastermind group had just lost somebody, and they scooped me up and brought me, and we've been together for 2 years. And that changed everything for me. I became a Bright Lifer. I joined Gideon Games, and I've been on the same Gideon Games team for 2 years. I've had the same mastermind group for 2 years. And that kind of got me going on my journey in Bright Line Eating.
So I want to ask you a quick question about your years through the 12-step program, just very quickly. Did you ever get down to like what you thought was a bright or right size body?
I did. I had several years of recovery and lots of years of relapse. So
Okay.
I lost 120 pounds and I got to my right size body. I stayed there for 3 years and I never thought I would relapse. I really didn't. And I did, because we all
Okay.
can, and lots of people do. And so I did get to my right size body. It works. I didn't get to my right size body in Overeaters Anonymous. I got into my right size body when I went to the stricter 12-step
So, and
program.
I'm wondering about that. What the reason I'm asking you that is because you just said this is the one that had the no sugar, no flour, weighed
Mhm.
portions.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking there you proved to yourself that it already worked. I mean, the actions of doing that worked. Even though you had now the foundation of surrender, really, like, to a higher power, all those things with 12 steps. And I'm not really well versed on them, but I know that there are the 12 steps. But you had a long history with the big book and following all that, but you actually saw in practical experience that the program worked when you were in the strict group, right?
And it wasn't just practical, because I really had a deep surrender. And during those 3 years, I'll tell you guys what happened. I didn't know about habit stacks. I didn't know what that was, but I had my no matter what's, and I never missed a day of reading, writing, praying. I never missed a day, because I could tell that it was like a safety net for me, just holding me up. And then I remember, this is what happened. I knew exactly what happened. I'd run a couple marathons. I have 6 kids. I had teenagers. I was busy. And I remember thinking after 3 years, I'm so tired. I can't keep doing this, because I went to 3 meetings a week and you had to drive a half hour, sit in chairs for a half hour, drive home. I had all these kids. And I remember thinking, I got to just let a few things go. Well, guess what happens when we let a few things go? And I remember when I sat my scriptures down, and when I missed a few nights of writing in my journal, and I just started letting my habit stack slide.
Wow.
And it took 6 months. Susan says our habits go first, the food is the last thing to go. And that's what happened to me. I went 6 months, still no flour and sugar, but my oatmeal started growing, and my cheese started growing, and my salad dressing started growing. And I remember gaining like 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds. And I was asked to speak at a 12-step meeting. And I remember going into that meeting and sharing, and I felt like a fraud. I was sharing my story, and I went and got in the car and drove home. And it had been about 6 months, and I walked into my kitchen and just opened the freaking door and ate a cookie so I could stop that whole, you guys know that monkey brain thing.
Pain. It's
am I bright or am I
pain.
not? What am I doing? And so I stopped it and started eating and gained 100 pounds. So.
Wow. This is so powerful, because I can picture it. I can totally picture it, where I just can't take one more thing. And the fraud piece, that is huge.
Yeah.
When you can't even tell yourself the lie anymore, so, you came to grips, but then, you went over the edge. You realized what you were doing, but then there was no turning back, it sounds like. So I say this too, because when you got into Bright Line Eating, and you're saying the very first part of the boot camp, you're not even feeling like a success, but you haven't given up on it.
You know why?
Why?
It's because I'm a people person, and I was completely alone in Huntsville, Alabama, staring at a computer screen. That's why.
Yeah.
I need a tribe of people. I can't do this alone. And I was trying to just do it alone, me and Susan on my computer.
Yeah. I know. I need the group so badly. I mean, I really need that interaction. So now you found people. You got into Bright Lifers, Gideon Games. So tell us just a little bit about that. What is this cohesive unit? What do you do to keep each other together on track? What is this? If somebody wanted to try to duplicate what you do.
I think for me, I still have strong connections with some of my 12-step friends, and we talk often. That part will never leave me, even though I was really scared to walk away from something that I had been doing for over 30 years. I think that I just needed real people. And you guys, I'm not around real people, but I'm so connected on Marco Polo and texting and messaging. I wouldn't say Facebook is a huge connection for me, but it's the way that I connected with everybody. It's the way I found my tribe. It's the way I found my mastermind group. It's the way I found my Gideon Games team, was through Facebook. But now it's phone calls and Marco Polo and Zoom, and it feels like connection, even though I'm really far away.
And you really have this common bond.
Mm-hmm.
And do they expect perfection out of you?
Okay, so let's talk about that. When Noreen and I were talking, I said, if I could have any message, it would be that I've had a very messy, imperfect, I've lost 110 pounds being very imperfect. And I would say my favorite word is unstoppable. Probably my two favorite words are automaticity. I love what my habit stacks have given me. And I love the word unstoppable. When Susan said, we're not called to be perfect, we're only called to be unstoppable. And so I tried a 100-day chart because I was used to, in 12 steps, you count days and you get a 30-day chip, a 60-day chip, a 90-day chip. So I was used to that. And so I just kept trying to get 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I got 90 days twice. That's the longest that's the longest stretch I've had in 2.5 years, is I've had two 90-day stretches in Gideon Games. But I pretty much break my lines. I have broken my lines. I don't know, every 2 or 3 weeks, by once a month. I don't know. I don't keep charts anymore. I don't count days anymore. But because of this interview, I do keep my 5-year journal. So I always write if I'm bright or not at the end. And so I went back to look at the beginning of January, and I've broken my line 7 times since Christmas. And so I guess what changed for me was, well, I'll just tell you about my last binge at Christmas time. So I have my team. I try to reach out, but if I find myself slipping, I isolate and pull away. And they'll be on Marco Polo going, "Where are you, Wendy? We haven't seen you." And when I'm binging or eating, I disappear. And so I disappeared for 8 days at Christmas, and I binged on everything. Flour, sugar, morning till I gained 15 pounds in 8 days. And I remember thinking, I'm diabetic. I'd been off all my meds for 2 years. I have no meds. So when I binge like that, my blood sugar goes up into the 300s and 400s because I'm still diabetic. And I remember thinking, I can't do this thing perfectly. I'll never be a crystal vaser. So how do I do this? And so at the beginning, Noreen put up a slide that shows David and Goliath, and it was December 27th. And I was just desperate. And I had been praying for several days. I wanted my big surrender to be on Christmas. I always want a big deal. I want a burning bush experience. I want to be Moses, get the 10 commandments, tell everybody what to do. And so I was looking for that. And I came across the story of David and Goliath. And I saw a couple quotes that talked about David and Goliath. So I went on YouTube and I put in David and Goliath. I opened the Bible and I read the story. And I have to tell you that I don't know where I got this, you guys, and I know it's broken thinking, but I just kept thinking that I'm so broken. Something's wrong with me. If I could just be good enough. And it was still there at Christmas time. I'd been doing Bright Line Eating for 2 years, and here I had binged for 8 days. So why couldn't I be good enough that God could help me do this? And then I read the story of David and Goliath, and I realized that I was always waiting to not want to eat. If I just prayed hard enough, then I wouldn't want to eat anymore. But my life is like all of you guys. It has ebbs and flows, and we have these situations that come. I have 34 people in my immediate family. That's my kids and grandkids. They all come at one time to family events, and they're so hard for me. And I just kept thinking, why can't Heavenly Father take this from me? But then with the story, nobody wanted to fight Goliath. He was this big 9-foot giant, and David said, "I'll do it." And his father was trying to put armor on him, but he was so tiny, the armor was too heavy, and he couldn't even hold it up. And then this is the turning point for me. When David turned and said, "I'm going to fight this Goliath because I know I can do this with God," he turned towards Goliath. And I thought, I have to learn to turn towards my addiction and fight and not keep waiting to not want to eat. As soon as the thought would come or the feeling would come, I would turn to the food and break my line. So I started fighting and realizing that I had to challenge and fight my thoughts, my feelings. And I learned that thoughts just kind of come and then they go. Just because I have a thought doesn't mean I need to act on it. And I learned that feelings have an energy. They come, there's a beginning and an end. And so I had to learn to be like David and just be willing to face the Goliath and battle. And I hadn't battled because for 2 years, if I was just kind of thinking about it, my Gideon Games team knows this, I would just turn to the food. And I always had a reason. We've been camping. All my kids are here.
Right.
Somebody's struggling. Someone's sick. I mean, there was always a reason. And they love me. They're not going to go, well, Wendy, that was a dumb reason.
Right.
So I just always had an excuse. And so, yeah, my last binge was at Christmas. And even though I've had some breaks, I've been training for a half marathon. And when I would do my 10-mile runs, my 11-mile runs, my 12-mile runs, I would just get some more that day or that night. And I couldn't figure out how to manage that. But no more. I feel like there's been a shift in my identity, and I'm not starting over. I'm not going back to square one. I'm not waiting for God to zap me to not want to eat. He's just with me on a daily basis as I kind of walk this journey with you guys. So,
and so you said that also after this binge the other day, that when we talked and you mentioned that, you said the timing of Susan's new book.
That's right. I forgot that. The book came out on the 28th, and Barnes, I had it coming on Amazon, but it wasn't shipped yet. So I canceled it and ran to Barnes and Noble and got it. And the book resumed, and the shift where I had to learn to battle a little bit with my thoughts and my feelings and wait them out. That book was life-changing for me, the Resume book. And I think she talks about in the book, I took grit a year before that. So grit taught me this. You got to nail it on the food. You got to get your habits going and get automatic in your daily habits. And then you have to load up on the support and lean into your support. So FAS, food action support. And that's what she talks about in Bright Line Eating. And so that book allowed me it gave me a shift of who I am. And I thought, I'm not a person that just breaks my lines. Now I'm a person that resumes and knows how to resume. And that really helped me because I learned how to kind of soften my approach and, you know what I mean? Like soften those lines a little bit. And,
right.
So I'm not going after the flour, the sugar, the binges, the last meal. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to the last meal thing, but it's like, I'm going to start over. So I might as well just go through every drive-through and get it all right. Right. And I don't do that anymore. And I haven't even had a second day. Like I used to, if I broke my lines, I had the belief that it was going to go for a week or two. That was my belief. If I break a line, I'm an addict and I'm going to be driving through all the drive-throughs. And Susan's book, Resume, I don't know how many of you guys have read it, but it was life-changing for me because I learned how to resume. And of course, my hope and desire is that those periods of time will lengthen out and I won't be breaking my lines, but I'm not binging anymore and I'm not beating myself up anymore. And that has been, I learned it from James Clear, The Atomic Habits. This is an amazing book too. And Susan told us to read it about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and, I have it. And
you have it?
I need to finish it. I need to finish it. It's so crazy. I have it sitting there. You know what I'm hearing from you, Wendy? This kind of interesting dissection or cross-section of, you had all of these experiences with the 12-step. You had the actual learning, kind of the same program, maybe not exactly, but kind of the same philosophy, but just the action part. Then the Bright Line Eating gave you the science part. Mm-hmm. But now you are facing Goliath with just face to face, head on, like just, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to stand for not, going forward with this. I don't know when
I didn't think that was okay to do that. I thought I was supposed to just be humble enough and be in prayer enough and have my head down enough or go to therapy enough. You know what I mean? I thought I was
Right.
supposed to heal something so that I wouldn't want
Well,
to
maybe you
eat.
thought you were broken in the
Yeah.
first
And
place.
so guess
Like
what?
going back to, your childhood, what's different about me? Why do I have to do this? I'm a good person. Why am I
Yeah.
taking food out of the teacher's desk? Like there had to be like these thoughts in you, like the guilt, but here you are, a good person raised in a good family, and you can't even put it together for yourself. All these
And
thoughts.
I have gone to so many therapists. I have spent so much money asking why am I a food addict? I even remember calling my mom. I went to one conference. It was a big conference and we were in a big circle. There were probably 80 people. And it was about, I don't know, everybody there was talking about how they had been sexually molested or whatever. And it's very common among people with women with food addiction. And I remember going home and calling my mom and saying, Mom, did anything happen to me? Do you remember anything? Because I could not make sense. I was trying to make sense of why I was so driven to the food at such a young age. But I found out I don't need to know why. I just
Yeah,
focus on the solution and then I don't have to worry about the problem anymore because I don't. And do any of us really know why anyway? I've been in
right.
so many 12-step meetings where some people grew up poor with no food and they're food addicts, and other people said our family had piles and tables of food and they're food addicts. So I don't know if
But,
we ever really know why.
but what's interesting too is that what I'm getting at with the 12-step stuff is it was the action of really taking to heart that program. And Susan, in the Resume book, you were saying, she's saying you do the action. It's not just in your head. You have to have a methodical plan. You have to be abstinent in between meals, for example.
Yeah.
And this goes back to that video, the vlog that you watched, the very first one, the one about
It's called Not an Option.
not an
Yeah.
option. I watched that today because I looked it up after you said that you had watched it. Not an option is, it's so interesting because it changes your identity. That the question came up to Susan that, will this ever go away? Like, will I ever not be thinking about the food all the time? And it's the action of not giving in, fighting your Goliath, not giving in to the exceptions that puts you on a path to
Mhm.
a point where it's like, that really is not my food.
Yeah.
And I kind of had an experience this week. I didn't plan on it. I was planning to work from home on Monday. And when I go to work during the week, I always have a lunch pack. I just always do now. And I never did in the past, but I do normally. I got called into work instead of working remotely. So I'll find something there. I won't pack my lunch. So I went to work and there was soup. And I'm like, okay, I'll have this tomato soup. Well, 2 hours later, I'm getting a headache because I haven't had fruit. I haven't had protein. I haven't had half of our great amount of lunch that we get. So I'm like, well, I'll hit the vending machine. I have not been to that vending machine in a year and a half. So I go down to the vending machine to get peanuts. No peanuts. I go to another building because I'm on a university campus. I go to the next building, their vending machine, no peanuts, but no nothing of sugar-free, flour-free. So then I'm thinking, okay, I'll go to the next. Now it's like a 10-minute walk to the building that I'm going to. And I go into like this whole little food store, and there's at least a 6 foot, maybe 8 foot rack. I look through every single piece of food. Nothing had no sugar, no flour. I look on the other side, nothing on that side. I look in the refrigerator, I see cheese. Okay, we have cheese sticks. I keep going. I found another package of cashews. The other ones had like honey roasted, all that. And I thought, wow, what is this? Like, as I said, I'm at a university. I'm like, what is a student supposed to do who is looking for a good food? There are no options. But in my mind, all this stuff was not an option. just like that video. It was not an option anymore. And I realized I am having that identity now that Susan was talking about, that if you say long enough, that's not my food, it starts becoming your identity, because it certainly wasn't that way in the beginning for me. It was a fight until it became automatic.
Yeah, and I think that I don't want to make it sound like it's a battle all the time, because Noreen and I talked, and I have tried so many times to write an emergency action plan, and I told Noreen I do not have one, because I always write them and I never do them. So for me, what works best for me is to make sure that I have a good, strong foundation every morning to hold me through. And I have to work harder at that foundation, and then I don't feel that pull towards the food. But on Easter Sunday, I had 2 families and their kids over, and I had the spread out, and it was in the middle of the meal. And so there's only 2 things I do when that emergency comes. I either pray or I go in my room and I make a phone call. And I've done that I didn't say a word. I didn't say excuse me. I just slid out and came into my bedroom and got on to Marco Polo with my Gideon Games team. And I said, I'm in trouble. This is really hard. And I'm committing to you guys that I'm going to wait this thing out, and I'm not giving in. And I'll be back tonight to tell you. And so I've learned, for me, I'm a people person. So it's either got to be God in prayer, and it works too if I'm willing to do that. But I haven't been willing. I'll be driving along and have a thought and then just go eat. But now if I'm driving along and I have the thought, I either reach out to somebody or I literally say, please, Heavenly Father, I don't want to do this anymore. Wow. And I feel like in 2022, I've really embraced reaching out for help instead of just giving into my thoughts. But I have to tell you something. I was going to Disney World in March, and I had a couple friends in program that have done that. And so I reached out. I don't remember how. You know what I mean? Is it text, messenger? I don't know.
Right.
And I said, how do you do this? And I hope I can stay bright. And she said, it has nothing to do with hope, Wendy. You just make a plan and stick to your plan. And that was really good for me to hear. I made a plan and I just stuck to it every day, and it was not hard. And so I need other people to share with me how they do things. And it's all those practices that end up shifting those beliefs, because James Clear in Atomic Habit, he says it's the practice of habits that will shift us and shift our identity. It's not hoping and praying for motivation that will then do the habits. It's the other way around. So I've learned to incorporate on that. I was trying to think what else. Oh, I know what I wanted to share with you guys, that on the 27th, I called on my friend Colleen and I said, I need my word for the year. And I just have gone through all this David and Goliath stuff. And what should it be? Should it be brave? Should it be courage? I was trying to think of the right word. And she said, just be fearless, Wendy. And so is this backwards? I guess it is for you guys.
No, it's perfect.
It isn't backwards. It is to me. So I have the word fearless, and one of my friends sent me made me a bracelet that says fearless, because with God, I can be fearless. It's like, I can take him with me every day. And Noreen and I talked about this, that I have this thing that I call daily manna. And Susan talks about it in the Resume book, and she talks about it on lots of videos, but it's that daily restoration where there's probably nothing I can do today that's going to keep me abstinent or bright. Abstinent is a Tolstoy word that will keep me bright 2 weeks from now. So I think of like the children of Israel when they escaped Egypt, God gave them manna every morning, and they could only scoop it up for that one day. If they tried to scoop it up for lots of days, it would go rancid and go bad. And I think I was just always looking for that big event, like writing Oprah, that would take it away. And it was just a Bright Line Eating taught me to stop looking for that one thing and just live my life. I had to go back to that, that one day at a time thing. And I need my daily manna. I need that little scoop of scripture and prayer. And I scoop out Bright Line Eating every day, whether it's accountability call or a vlog or one of the coaching calls or one of the modules. I just scoop a little bit of each thing that I need every day, so that it gives me the strength and the foundation just to get through that day. Because I forget. I don't need anything new or big. I just need to be reminded. And I think James Clear talks about that we don't need something new to do. We just need to be reminded of what we already know and do that. And that's what Bright Line Eating I don't know, it's kind of taught me to do
That
that.
is,
And
I love that phrase, daily manna. And I also especially love that you can't scoop up more and try to store it up.
yeah,
You can't somehow, it'd be nice if you could store up your motivation for tomorrow, but it's kind of like Zig Ziglar. He's a speaker. He passed
yeah,
away years ago. He'd say it's kind of like bathing. You have to do it daily, to be refreshed. You have to just keep going. It's not going to keep you clean and fresh for weeks. One dose. And you could binge all of Susan's blogs in one day, but that's not going to help you possibly 3 days from now.
yeah.
It's just a little bit at a time.
But I know everybody. I've been here long enough to see that everybody's kind of, we're all wired differently. Not necessarily our brains, but because we're food addiction. But it seems like everyone kind of, some people can just, I have a friend that's just read the book and lost 150 pounds, and she's just done it on her own. And I don't know where she is on the susceptibility scale, but not everybody needs the tribe that I need. I just need people in my life. I think some people, they don't sign up for all access and take all the courses. I loved grit, and I loved learning about parts work, and I ordered a book on parts work, and then I eventually did parts work with Laura Lively and did several sessions with her. And it really helped me to realize that I'm not completely broken and sick. I just have these parts of me. And she taught me to kind of combine the parts and nurture them. And it was very healing for me. So even though the parts work might seem weird to some people, I really enjoyed it. And it helped me. It really did help me a lot. But I guess I just want to, I'm sure we're coming to the end or whatever, but I just want to share that I really think there's a whole bunch of us out there that do struggle and do this thing imperfectly and do break our lines. And I still think that we can find our way to our bright bodies. My top weight's 260, and I'm about 15 pounds away from my bright body. I've lost 110 pounds.
But you ran a
And,
half marathon
and I
last.
ran a half marathon with all my kids on Saturday to
Oh
commemorate my 60th birthday. So,
You said that
but
there were 4 S's mentioned in the book that Susan talks about in to resume quickly,
yes,
right?
yes, I love acronyms. So FAS is food action support, and then the 4 S's are they're seek the lesson, because when it gets messy, there's lots of lessons. So I journal a lot and try to seek the lesson, and then speed. So instead of 8 days of binging, I was able to just flip it around after one meal of eating too much. So it's seek the lesson, speed, support, and self-compassion. And the self-compassion occurs for all of us in our thinking. And when we, and the thinking can go the other way, you guys, because Susan talks about the reason people break their lines is because they're unprepared or they get cocky. And I think I got cocky. I was in my church's addiction recovery program for 5 years, and we had this recovering alcoholic named Todd. And Todd said in one meeting, he said, you got to really be careful, and that you don't ever think I've got it. As soon as you think I've got it, you're going to lose it. And I always remembered Todd saying that. So I think that, it's kind of like I remember there was this heart doctor, and he talked about doing a heart transplant. And he said his patients, they're near death when they get a heart transplant. And then all of a sudden they start feeling better, and they take that rejection medicine every day. And they have to get periodic biopsies to make sure the tissue is still alive and well. And he said one of the biggest struggles is to get people to take that medicine every day, kind of like people that struggle with depression. They start feeling good when they're on the medicine. So the first thing they want to do is get off the medicine. And so it's easy. I've lost 100 pounds. So it's like my brain says, you know what, you're doing good. Maybe you aren't as addicted. Maybe you're not really a 10. Maybe you're not as addicted as you think you are, whatever. And so that's why I like that daily manna, that daily pill or anti-rejection. It reminds me of that I don't got it.
Do you forcefully, like just in your writing or whatever, remind yourself of where you were before?
No, I forget all the time. I don't have any way to remember. I forget the binge at Christmas.
Yeah.
I have lots of journals. I've journaled, and I was going to go get one of my old journals to remind me that you know what I mean? I couldn't bend over. I couldn't do the seatbelt. I slept with
Right.
pillows all the way around me. You know, you get sweaty and icky and it's hard to shave your legs and all of that stuff.
All of
And
the
I
things.
didn't go find that journal, but I forget because when you're bright and you start to get closer to your right size body, you just start to feel comfortable in your own skin and comfortable around people. So it really is hard to remember the pain of the eating and the binging and the weight. Don't you agree, Noreen?
Oh my goodness. I mean, the thing is it was really hard in the beginning and then it got easy. And so then you think, oh,
Yeah.
well, this is really not bad at all. So then
Yep.
you go off. Hopefully you don't. You don't have to. Anybody listening, you don't have to, but take my word for it. If you do, you're not going to feel well. At least I didn't.
Right.
And then it's a wake-up call, like, okay, take action to do this. You know, I want to ask you a little bit more about your habit stack, though, because when we talked, not everything on that habit stack would look like this is BLE.
Right.
You have you have things that I think make you feel good. Like I know you have make your bed. I mean,
Yeah.
you have the spiritual things, the daily manna. This is a question, when can you start exercising? I think you have exercise on there too.
Mhm.
So of that habit stack for you, how many are really BLE things, like reaching out, and how many are just, I'm doing them because this makes me feel good as a person, as a wife, as a mother? Like what is the division there?
Yeah, I would say I'm trying to think of the bright line eating stuff on my habit stack. I write my food down and commit it to 3 people every single night. And if I forget, then I hurry and text it to them in the morning. So committing my food, I send my habit stack at night, take a picture of it. That's BLE. And what else do I do? And then I scoop a little bit of I would say, yeah, only a fourth of it maybe. I take vitamins, I exercise, I make my bed. I read scriptures, and you guys, I finally took meditation off. I did. I meditated all during 2021, and it's like painful for me. I tried so hard to have it be wonderful and fantastic, and I did it the whole year, only 10 minutes. And most of the time I was looking down at my phone to see if my 10 minutes were up. So I'm not a good meditator. And James Clear talks about don't keep something on your habit stack that's just swirling around in you. You're constantly chasing all day long. And so I just took it off, and I think it's on the one that I sent you, Noreen, but I just took it off about a month ago. And I'm like, you know what? I pray, I listen to music, I go for walks, I listen to podcasts, I do lots of things and I'm an empty nester. I have lots of quiet time. I can see why Susan needs to meditate. All these young moms with their busy lives, and those of you that work full time, I have lots of time to ponder and think. And so I got rid of it. So I do change things up.
And what do you do for exercise?
Yeah, well, I just walk. That's all.
Okay.
I do yoga, and I do yoga classes, but that doesn't feel like exercise. That feels more like core strengthening.
Because I was just thinking getting ready for a half marathon would take more than just walking. Like you had.
Yeah. That I just mean overall. I started running for the half marathon 6 months ago. I did and followed a program, and I had a sponsor or a guide to help me do replenishing meals on the Saturdays that I had long runs, because I'm on the weight loss thing. I'm not on maintenance. And so when you go, my app would tell me that I just burned 2,000 calories or 2,200 calories on my run. I knew I needed to, but I don't do nuts or nut butter. And so that is something that people do to replenish. And most replenishers that are runners do the gels and the goos, and they all have sugar. So it was pretty nasty what I did on my half marathon. I took a half a banana, and I took sunflower butter, and I mushed it into a baggie. And at about mile 6, I just pulled my baggie out of my pocket and tore off the end and squeezed it in. It was pretty gross. It was hot because it had been in my pants the whole time. So trying to find a way to replenish in the middle of the race that it doesn't have sugar in it. And they had juice and gels, whatever they're called, gels and goos and Gatorade all along the route, but I couldn't do that. So
no, that's, you really You had a lot to do to just
But
prepare.
I'm never, ever, ever running again. I'm too old. It was too hard. I'm missing toenails now. So it's okay. It was
Oh
just
my
something
gosh.
that I did for my birthday, but I'm never doing it again.
Well, then I'm going to ask you the question that is, what are your non-scale victories that beyond running? Because that's kind of bad about the toenails.
I couldn't remember. You said you were going to ask me 3 questions, and I couldn't remember any of them, but that one. So I wrote some down. Now I can use a regular sized bath towel instead of a beach towel when I get out of the shower. Today I bent over and painted my toenails. I haven't been able to do that for so long. I can tie shoes. I don't have to wear slip-ons. I can go into a crowded room. I just retired from working in an elementary school. And now I can go in and I don't have to look for a path to squeeze through the desks and the chairs and the kids. You know, if I'm in a crowded event, I can just walk through. I can sleep in one position for hours. I don't have to toss and turn from all the weight being on one hip or the other. I've been off my meds for 2 years. I can cross my legs. I have a lap to hold my grandbabies. I can see hips and bones. I can look people in the eye and be okay, kind of be one among many instead of feeling so much shame about myself. And that's one thing that's hard is I'm such a people person and such an extrovert that I need people in my life. But when I'm eating, I can't have people in my life. My addiction tells me I can't talk to you. I can't be with you. And that really affected me as a mother because I would come up with reasons not to go to PTA meetings and soccer games because I just couldn't sit there at 260 pounds on those benches. I was just too ashamed. So it's allowed me to have some integrity on the inside. And I'm not talking about the clothes. That's not what I mean, although that's fun. It's fun to wear smaller sizes, but just to have some integrity and dignity. But there's two things. There's 2 things. The last 2 things are I have peace around food. I have a quiet head and my food's pretty automatic now. And I can feel love. My kids just did this wonderful program for me on Saturday night up in Nashville, and they read 34 love letters to me. All the kids and the grandkids wrote letters.
Oh, wow.
And if I had been in the food, none of it would go in, and I would have felt unworthy. And then afterwards, I would have eaten all the food, the leftovers. I would have had a reason to go into the kitchen and scoop stuff up. But instead, they said, "Mom, do you want a birthday cake?" And I said, "No, I'm good." So they put the happy birthday 60th thing in my taco salad for me and took a picture. And, you know, nobody has to have birthday cake. So I can feel feelings and feel pain. I've been through some pretty painful stuff these last couple months with my husband, and he really, really struggles with depression, and it's been hard. But my habit stacks and God give me, I don't know, a safety net that just keeps me safe. And I think I had to learn to surrender to the process of right line eating, and then ask Heavenly Father to hold me up and give me the strength to do that.
Wow. So beautiful and really incredible. Just, you know, when I saw your pictures, the then pictures, I just see this beautiful smile on you. And I picture you as a happy person. I know you from our conversation as a happy person, and I believe you are. But even through all of that, there's that invisible pain that only you inside know. You know, you talk about like the open spaces. I just went to a concert, well, actually a play last weekend. And I swore that they've changed the seating because the last time I was there, when I would be at the end of the aisle, I could see everybody like start to get up so that I could get through. You know what I mean? Because they were gauging, like you're talking about that narrow pathway, they're gauging if I'm going to fall in their lap. But here I just walked in and I thought, have they moved these seats farther apart one from another? Obviously they haven't, but it's those things that you just become so conscious of all the time, like every room, looking people in the eye, you know, and
or being asked to give a prayer at church and think, I can't waddle this fat butt up there. You know what I mean? And people will see me from behind. So I would always come up with a reason. And now I can be asked, could you say a prayer? And I can say, sure. And that's that dignity that we get from living kind of in our, I don't know how to say it, but it's like Susan says it. She calls it our authentic self. there's our centered self instead of living in the parts out here that are just, crying and needing attention and needing food. We can just kind of be centered and quiet down. And when I pick up the food, when I did at Christmas, I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but I get mean and ornery and argumentative. And my husband, he doesn't know. He hasn't seen what I've hidden under my bed or behind the rocking chair. And I know he thinks, God, what did I do? And I don't know how to say, it's not you. Trust me, it's me. I'm back into my addiction. And so it definitely affects my relationships with people and friends and family, because I don't know how to be calm. I don't know how to.
Well, it's not you. And, I think, and I'm just going to say it, I feel like when we're into all the food, I think they call it saboteur. You can call devil,
Yeah.
evil one, whatever. I think the purpose is to hold you back to get rid of that so that you can live your authentic servant life to the rest of the world. That world could be your family, your friends, whatever your world is. But when you're into the food, you're into yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just like this opening that I have myself to give now.
Yeah. It's freedom. It really is freedom. And how can living tight boundaries with food give you freedom? But it does.
I know.
I'm not a
foodie. Make sense.
I hate recipes. I hate pictures of food. I scroll by all of it. I love that there's people that love to do that, because it's not my strength. I'm not a cook. I hate shopping. I hate preparing. I just hate all of that. And I'm not good with tips and hacks and tricks, because my addictive mind can maneuver around any of that. If I throw it in the trash, I can dig it out. If I put salt on it, I can shake it off. If I get it wet, I can dry it off. Like, there's just when I'm in my active addiction, there's no hack or trick or shortcut that's going to get me there. The only thing that seems to work for me is either have a strong foundation in the morning so I can step away from it, have a pause button, or call somebody or pray. That's it. None of my breathing. I can 5 breaths and I'm still reaching for the food. You know what I mean? It's like I listen to people's hacks and tips and stuff, and I'm I'll outmaneuver all those.
Well, Wendy, here we are. The last question I have for you is, if somebody here, and somebody will listen to this, and they may be exactly where you were, what would you say to them about trying out Bright Line Eating?
I didn't remember what the last question was. I think it's just take a breath, trust, and fall all in. You just fall into it and trust the plan. I think that if we really listen to our insides and we see the joy in people's life from giving up the flour and sugar, that we can know that we can do that too. And of course, I walk a path of faith and of religion. So I think that for me, any path starts with fervent prayer and asking God to lead me to the right people, help me have the energy to do this, give me the strength to prep and prepare and do, my habit stack doesn't look anything like the one I got at boot camp, because I just had to find what worked for me, and I'm not a good bed maker. So that's the first thing I had to put on there, because why make a bed? I can just climb back in. And so I think that it can be a messy, complicated path, but in that complication and in that mess, that's where I find God. I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and I don't connect with perfect people. I connect with people in the struggle with me. That's whose hand I want to hold, and let us struggle together, because there's a bunch of us that are struggling through this, trying to do this the best we can. And if I could just give hope to anybody, but like Genevieve told me, it's not just about hope, it's making a plan and following through on the plan.
Yeah, it really is. And having trust that you can follow through. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, my heart is full. Just listening to you and sharing your story. I appreciate so much that you said yes and taking one for the team of coming on out. And I know that your story and your wisdom and the spiritual shift that you experienced, that the David and Goliath, and picturing yourself in the battle, not giving up.
With God, by myself,
God.
Goliath would kill me and take me down.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You
But
know what's funny, Noreen, is right. The next vlog that Susan did, it was the very first one she did in January. And she talked about, okay, you guys, we're going to just blow this thing wide open and we're going to help the world get to the right size bodies. And she said, I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be a David and Goliath story for Bright Line Eating.
wow.
And when that happens, you're like, what? So that one really helped me
Yeah.
hear it out of Susan's mouth too.
Yeah. So fantastic. Well, any last words?
I think I just vomited all over everybody. I probably have no more. Thank you, Noreen. You're just a sweetheart. I feel like I'm your 82nd friend now.
I'm so happy.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to close as I do each week. Good night. Stay bright. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Noreen.
So, Wendy, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
Sure, Noreen.
Okay, I have a question, another one about your habit stack. When I looked at the little paper that you have, it said habit stack ceiling. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah, I never sent you my floor. So I listened to a podcast about a year ago that explained, and Susan talks about a little bit too, that there's a ceiling and there's a floor. And when I'm traveling and when I'm helping one of my kids who just had a baby, I have a floor habit stack, and it's about half as long, and it has the most important things. Exercise isn't on there. I pray, I write in my 5-year journal, I dip into Bright Line Eating, and I read scripture. It's a shorter one. So it's a floor. It's the minimum.
Oh.
Ceiling is the one that I try to do every day.
Wow, that's great. I must have missed that vlog. And another thing on your habit stack says, take calm.
Yes. Is Colleen still here? So, okay, here we go, Colleen. I know. So many of us get constipated in this program, and I don't know why, because we eat all these fruits and vegetables and fiber. It's like, what the heck? And I'd never had that problem before. And it got so bad, you guys, I went to my doctor, and I tried everything. I tried fiber pills, and I tried laxatives and milk. Bonnie told me to do milk and magnesia. I tried it all, and drinking more water. And he sent me to a gastroenterologist. I was ready to have a colonoscopy.
This was really serious then.
Yeah. Yes, I would go like 2 weeks. And Colleen said, get calm, go get calm. There was a picture of it in the thing. They sell it at Costco, Walmart, whatever. Mm-hmm. It has a little something sweet in it, but I just count it as medicine and don't worry about that. And so I tried like a teaspoon. I'm like, this doesn't work. And on the outside, it says build up to 2 teaspoons. And I'm like, well, that didn't do anything. And then I listened to my group, and they all take more than that. So I do a tablespoon every night, and it just keeps me regular every day. So it's called Calm. Yeah.
And no bad parts of it. It's just
nope, nothing good. No side effects. Everything's good. Everything comes out great.
Okay, well,
makes me so happy.
They do have an unflavored calm. I know that I used it in the past, and it's not good, but they do have an unflavored one, completely unsweetened.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, note to self. Okay, this is the third question. This is for all the money, all the marbles.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
All right. So in this whole situation you've been in all through your life, okay? You're walking through it. Do you regret any of it?
Oh, wow. There's been so many times where I thought, this isn't fair and I don't want this addiction. But you know what? I still have my home, my family, my husband, my children. I didn't lose what so many drug addicts and alcoholics lose. And so I think I'm finally back to that place to where, thank you, Heavenly Father, for this addiction, because you know what? It brings me to my knees. It humbles me. It makes me reach out for help. Can you imagine if I just nailed this and had it going on? I'd have another problem, and I'd have another trial or struggle. So do I regret it? I still wonder about it. Did I make this happen? Did I bring this on myself? What did I do but then So I don't regret that. I love what the 12 steps brought me, and I love the community and Bright Line Eating. And you know what I really love? I love that Susan Pierce Thompson, the CEO, the money maker of this whole thing, encourages us to connect, to get in mastermind groups, to get on unofficial whatever we do, Facebook groups, we connect. And she doesn't get a dime from it. She just knows that us doing this, what we're doing tonight, will get us just further down the road in our recovery. And that helps Bright Line Eating, because we got a whole bunch of people living in bright bodies for a lot longer than a few weeks or a nanosecond, like some of us have done in the past.
Well,
So,
and the thing that I have found too is looking back at all of that, it has made me where I am today. Like, I don't know that you can have the empathy for people in this situation unless you have experienced it, you know, deeply, like to really understand what somebody's going through. And there are so many people who need that empathy, and then they need a hand outstretched, a good word, and, you know,
yeah.
maybe
I'd rather spend an hour with you, Noreen, than any therapist or dietitian that doesn't understand addiction.
Yeah.
Because we've all been in those rooms,
Yeah.
and they try to get you to just be moderate, just try, just journal it, just whatever. And I need to abstain. And that's what I learned. I need a hard line in the sand with flour and sugar. Just divorce it and don't touch it. And yeah,
I wonder how many,
but not flour and sugar.
I seriously wonder how many little Wendy's there are that are now being told, you know, to moderate, like you can have one cookie, honey, or whatever, and they can't. Or like as I said, people who are trying to make a difference and are walking into their place of work or school or wherever that they want to buy something because they forgot their lunch, and they find only flour and sugar on the shelves. As I experienced, I always brought my lunch since Bright Line Eating. So I hadn't experienced it. I saw it with new eyes.
Yeah.
It was seriously, there was nothing to eat. And, you know, it's just as we become more aware of this and we can work beyond our own struggle, we can help the others, as you are tonight, Wendy.
Thank you, Noreen. You're such a sweetheart. And thank you for your service that you do for all of us. This has been such a treat to be with you. Thank you.
And likewise, it's been a delight. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Good night. Stay bright. Good night.